It takes a tremendous amount of courage to look like Aidan does and to walk out the door every day. He was a very tricky baby. He had reflux, he had trouble going to the bathroom, and we ended up at a gastroenterologist, and he just said to me, there is a disease that's diagnosed through birthmarks. So he did have birthmarks on his stomach. So the next time I went to my pediatrician, she said, you know what, just go to a dermatologist to be safe. And we went, and he had 11 cafe au lait spots. And if you have over 6, that's one of the signs of NF.
Neurofibromatosis, or NF, is a syndrome where patients get these growths in different parts of their body. For some people, it's a cosmetic issue, and for some people, it's so mild they don't even care. And then sometimes they're centrally located in places that can be really quite dangerous.
So I found a neurologist, and we went to see her, and she was like just giving him a physical, really. And she said he has a tumor in his neck. We took him in for an MRI that next day, and I remember she came out and she said, I had no idea. And it was down part of his arm, down into his chest, into his brainstem. And I remember just my late husband just kind of taking like a few steps back, like he was shocked. And I remember just kind of looking at her, and I think I don't remember really having a reaction. I don't think I totally understood. And the next day, he was walking across the living room, and he fell down, and he couldn't move. And he went in the next day for a 9-hour brain surgery. Yeah. They had to go in and remove part of his spinal column. So there was no treatment for NF, so the tumor was just growing. I dragged him to every doctor in the Northeast. I took him to Boston, I took him to Philadelphia. I went to see a doctor at Sloan Kettering, and we walked in, and he just looked at us and said, I wish he had cancer, there's nothing we can do. And then I got to the point where I realized, actually, nobody's gonna figure it out. You know, my husband was killed.
This just in, you are looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. When you have a 21-month-old, there's no time to just go to bed and mourn a terrible loss, because a 21-month-old wants to go to the playground. Without Aidan, I don't know what I would have done. My sole focus was him. This was my only child, and I was gonna keep him alive. I did find a great doctor, Dr. Adam Levy. I walked into his office, I met him, he was really smart, he had a good plan. And I was walking out of his office, and he said, Mrs. Fraser, I just need to tell you something. And I said, what? And he said, I was a friend of your late husband's. He said, we grew up together, we played soccer. And I just looked at him and I was like, shocked.
Was actually a friend of mine back in the day. We went to high school together. He was this outstanding athlete, hilarious, funny guy. I remember meeting his mom, and they'd been to places and they said there was no hope, and they were, just kind of desperately seeking other opinions and ideas of what to do for him.
And then when he was around 6, he fell down. And what happened was he had swan neck. So when they removed the spinal column, his spinal cord started collapsing.
My first phone call was to Dr. Rick Abbott. And Rick put together this team of multiple surgeons, other spine surgeons, plastic surgeons, like all of these different types of experts to figure out how we're gonna reconstruct his spinal column and his neck.
They had never done it this way before, because they had to go around all his main arteries. I was trying to think how we were gonna get out of this, and was he gonna die? And I remember saying to Dr. Abbott, I would much rather have Aidan paralyzed than dead. It was so scary. They rebuilt his spinal cord with his rib cage. It was insane. It was insane. And we were in the ICU for about a month.
After my surgery, when I was sick, when my spine was rebuilt, they had to lock me in my room because I didn't feel safe sleeping by myself. They had to strengthen my spine to keep the spinal fusion working. It's much more easy for that to come undone, so I've always had to be very careful. And it's a 24/7 in your head, should I do that? I'm not sure, so I'm not gonna do it. You'll walk into the gym and you'll be like, the kids are rowdy today. I shouldn't participate. I'm obviously very visually affected, and for school there was a lot of bullying. You know, don't sit with us at lunch. You know, it was very hard to make friends because I was living in a small community and people that were different were, you know, not very easily accepted. That was the hardest. And we kind of made the decision that we needed to move. So we moved to the city, where being different is New York City, so people that are different, you don't get even a glance on the street. You'll go into a store, you're gonna get, basically the question is, you're gonna pay me, right?
When I first met them, they were really tight. It was Aidan and his mother, and there'd been this little unit for 17 years.
I probably sometimes took care of him too much, shielded him too much, I would say, from the world.
And seeing Aidan embrace the city and really love going out and feel confident to go to Starbucks or go to the deli, walk to school, walk back from school, walk to his doctor, and so on, was a huge change and hugely inspirational for me.
I've been on a ton of clinical trials, and I am very fortunate that I was able to be part of the phase 1 clinical trial for the tumumepinin drug.
It does have its challenges. He is very tired. He vomits quite a bit. I mean, enough that he has a pot next to his bed, but it's very difficult for him.
You know, I'm sick. I don't even wanna, if I wasn't pretty sympathetic crew, I'd probably call it. I am not feeling good.
It's hard with the side effects and stuff. He doesn't always want to take the medicine, which you get. Then you have to sit down and go over what's the alternative.
He's part of that first volley of patients who tried this novel drug that really proved a success for these patients.
My tumor has shrunk around 40% since I started the tumumepinin. That's one big step closer. That's probably the biggest step we've ever taken closer to a cure.
We went from having no medications that were even rational to try to going through a series of rational drugs and now finding one that actually works.
Now, for the first time, we actually have hope. And where it's more, you know, what is Aidan going to do for the rest of his life? Because there's a pretty good chance Aidan's going to live a very long life.
Typically, we engage, we identify the internships for the students. Aidan's situation was very unique, where he came to us with an idea for an internship for himself, which really he pursued. You know, he was making these moves. He did it.
I am a part-time developmental assistant at the Tumor Foundation. I want to help people at NF. That's what I want to do. I want to help people. Neurofibromatosis is a genetic disorder in which tumors grow on nerves throughout the body.
He has NF1, and I have NF2.
So I guess you could call this show
Tumor Talk. What age did you know you have enough?
I think the age I really started to understand it was like 5 or 6.
Wow, that early?
I really wanted to be able to give kids like a friend and somebody who's older, and I want them to be able to see, you know, you can succeed. I feel like it kind of shows them there is a future.
He's really now trying to get out there and really educate the world about NF. He's a fantastic, you know, role model for people with disease.
I think Aidan is just an icon for folks to realize that no matter how severely they are affected by their NF, they can live a life full of love and a life full of happiness and a life that they contribute to a lot of other people.
He didn't choose to have, NF. He didn't choose to have his father killed in the Twin Towers. But actually, you've got to ask the question, why? One of the things Aidan said to me on the first night in this flat was, gosh, I can see the top of the Freedom Tower, and there's this little red light flashing. And actually, I turned to him and said, Aidan, do you think that's your dad looking at you? And actually, from his bed, from his pillow, he could look straight out, and you can see it.
I really wish I could have known my father. And for me, I always feel really bad about that because everybody else in my family did. And everybody always thought that I look like him. And it's really sad. And I think for me, it's almost like I did not have a father until my mom got married this year.
You're suddenly merging families, and in comes a new father figure. I feel really humbled and really privileged because I don't feel that actually I've let Aidan into my life. I feel he's let me into his life. I think his dad's watching over him. I think his dad sees him every night, from the top of the Freedom Tower, looking down and quietly kind of blinking at him. And I think Aidan senses that.
You have a choice about how you're going to live your life. And I choose, and I think Aidan chooses, to make the best of every single situation. No matter what happens, no matter what we have to do, we're going to do it. We're going to make the best of it.
It's about looking at the bright side, and it will get better.